Hi, this is going to be a daily experience video. I got a bit drunk recording the Hungarian version, so I'm gonna be a bit more than happy while recording this version. Um, I'm gonna talk about the daily experience of my Valentine's Day. I used to hate Valentine's Day. Then I started to minister, and then I forget about like that this exists. Like I've forgotten about like my birthdays and all that. So I was just into ministry and things like that. And since COVID and this calm down season of my life, I started to like intentionally date Jesus, like literally orchestrating programs to be with him, like not just my silent time in my room worshiping, but like going out and having a real date with God, like going on a walk and have a nice dinner or something, like literally dating him as a person. And I have fun doing that, and I do it without like Valentine's Day, but when I would specifically do such a thing as Valentine's Day, and that was the plan for this Valentine's Day as well, but a little grain of sand in the system was that I made a mistake, like not a big one, but a big one for me. Just a few days before the Valentine's Day, and I was really like condemning myself for it, and so much so that I was like, I'm not sure I would enjoy this Valentine's Day at all. like, um, um, maybe I'm gonna like keep thinking about how could I make this mistake and all that. So I had like zero expectations about myself. Like I had like very low expectations. I was just like, I just shouldn't be too depressed. That's all I wanted. And I woke up early in the morning, which is a miracle in itself, and with this like happiness, and I was like, I'm just longing to be with God, like so much. I can't fall back asleep. I need to stay. I need to be with him now. And I was just listening to some teaching on silence with the Lord, whatever. It was a background noise for me. I was just resting with God and doing like, doing nothing, just being. And just, I can't really describe, like I can use some fancy words for that, but when there is nothing going on, you are just there with God. And there's a sense of joy and freedom and tranquility, but it is not really a sense, it is a state of mind. But even more than that, you are just in touch with the presence of God that is always in you. You just have an insight into what has already been there, this constant presence in us. And there are times when our eyes are open to see it, and oh yeah, there's so much presence here. um and oh, just take a look into yourself, like just realize how much of God is there in you. Of course you can't really see all of it, you just Take a look at that. So, I was having the time of my life. I felt like I would stay there forever. Like, I don't really want to do any other program for that day. Like, I'm there. And then I remembered, like, oh, it's Valentine's Day. I should do something special with God. And I had a lunch, which was kind of like a gift for me because accidentally I found all the ingredients of the perfect lunch, and I was happy about like having it with God, and yeah, I was enjoying that. And then I was heading towards a beautiful forest mountain scene outside of the city. Um, but it's quite a long bus ride, and I really love um, traveling by bus when I can look through the window and just listening to worship, and I have this mask on so no one sees that I'm exploding. So it's just, I love it. And I had such an amazing time in worship. Like, it was a long ride and I didn't want to make it any shorter. Like, I was having my time with God. Like, yeah, just listening to some worship. And I don't always have this kind of like expressive worship. I love like just having worship as a background thing and just sitting in silence. But now I was just like, why exploding in it? Like, I just really wanted to be it. Um, so I was happy for the mask. Like, I tried to contain myself. And when I arrived, basically no one was on the mountain. Like, who would go to the mountain in the freezing cold on Valentine's Day in the afternoon? Like, I met like 2 people together or something, and I was just walking in the forest, and I discovered new places with Jesus. There was a trunk on one of the hilltops, and the sun was shining, and I was just sitting there in silence and just spending some time with God there. And I had a lot of like conversations with the Lord, but I wasn't that much into conversation because I felt like I failed at hearing God because of my mistake. So this mistake was especially like I felt like I heard God about something, and then I realized that it wasn't God, or I wasn't hearing it right. And I felt like, oh, I don't want a conversation. Like, I'm not sure I can hear God about anything. And there were times when I felt like He was my company, walking together, holding hands. And there were times when He was just right where I was. He was just me. He was just the same person, as me. And we just had the same thoughts. And yeah, we were walking, and I had so much joy, so much peace, so much freedom. God just tries to teach me that in the last few weeks, that I don't really get it, but He says this: let my life live its life through you. And it's basically, He's like, I don't try to make things happen. Don't even try to make my will happen. Don't even try to follow my my guidance. You can't make those things happen either. Just let my life live through you. Um, yeah, just trust my life in you, that it's gonna live its life through you, and you don't need to analyze it, you don't need to oversee it, you don't need to help it. Um, yeah. So I had so much joy. My perspective was so high. It wasn't like, okay, I'm having a great day. It was like my life couldn't be any better. Like there are dimensions to freedom. And after being depressed, feeling great is a huge shift. But there are the sky is the limit, you know. There are dimensions to it. Like and let me admit to you, I'm not always there. Like I don't always have that kind of like high perspective, that everything is just as good as possible. But I felt like that, and not just felt, like I tapped into the reality of this in this day, and I was like, it was such a gift from God. Like this is the day when I should especially feel devastated about the mistake I made, and everything is just more than fine. mm. So when I was really cold, I bought some hot tea and I sat down to watch the clouds and just enjoy silence. And you know, this thing when nothing happens and everything happens. You are just with God, and there is literally no thing happening, and you feel like this is the best thing that has ever happened to you. So I felt like staying there forever, like, but I was really cold, so I just decided to go back to the town. And we were with a good friend of mine, who she's a crazy Jesus lover, and we were talking about we should like spend some time together on Valentine's Day, worshiping together, and we were listening to some Upper Room Live or something, and then we just started to like uh, step on the nostalgia tram and showing each other old Hillsong worships, like the really cool ones from the early 2000s. And we were just like, you know, showing it, playing it, and crying on that. That was the program for the night, and it was amazing. And you know, there are those worship songs that you have a memory of, like God hitting you for the first time, like when you first have fallen in love with Jesus. It's like just a few, just listening to it makes you high, like makes you go there. Yeah, so it was crazy good. And I went back home and I felt like I had the perfect day. Like it couldn't be any better. And most of the days I have times of the day when I'm aware of God's presence, and there are times that are like, okay, that I know that I'm in God's presence even that time, but I'm not especially aware of it. And it was so cool that almost without interruption, or with just a little interruption, I spent the whole day uh, being very much aware of the presence. And it was such a gift for me. Like it was something special from God to me. And in the Hungarian version, I continued this story with some rambling on the freedom in God's presence, and I'm gonna do that in English as well. Uh, the greatest thing about this experience was that I had to realize that I can't really blow it. I can't really fail. I always thought that the presence of God is something like a special thing that I need to be like aware of and take care of it. And it's true in a sense. Like when you first start to like have experiences, you are like, oh, it's so special. I need to keep it. I need to avoid my mind going into distractions so that I can stay aware of it. And I realized that I can, even if I do something that could distract my mind from the presence, it just doesn't. I just made this mistake, and it is something that could really prevent me experiencing God, and it cannot. And I always dreamt of like, once I will be so close to God, whatever that means, that I will never do things that distract my mind from the presence. And then I will be very happy because then I'm gonna always have the presence of God. And something way cooler happened to me. God has taken me to a place where even if I mess things up, my mind is not distracted by it. Like, and it is an even greater freedom. Like, even if I make a mistake, nothing changes. Of course, I know that God doesn't withdraw his presence, but I was always like, he doesn't withdraw his presence, but it doesn't help me if I can't be aware of it. And God has just shown me this freedom. Like, even if you mess things up, you can stay aware of the presence. There is this freedom where nothing can separate you. And I always had this mentality that I'm in the presence because I take care of my mind to stay in it. Yeah, I had this I really love silence. Everything works together for good for those who are in love with God. And yeah, we kind of like throw it at each other, but it means that there is a place of freedom where even your mistakes help you in your walk with God. Like, I can't even tell you whether it was deception or it was a gift from God that I failed. Like, there was a moment of complete confusion. Like, am I hearing God? Have I ever heard God? And the next thing I felt like that the fact that I could make such a mistake makes me want to give up my whole being to God again. I've done it a few times, but it's just like, just the fact that I can be that silly to do such a stupid thing, it just makes me want to give up my life to him. And I was like, oh, even deception works for me. Like, I have never felt that close to God in my life before. Like, I made a huge mistake and it only made me want to give up myself to him more. It just only made me want to be with him more. And I don't say that the enemy works for God, but it surely works for you. I mean, if your heart is all about God and loving him, everything just pushes you towards him. The good things pushes you towards him, and the bad things push you towards it. It's just, you cannot make mistakes ever again. Like, even your mistakes are like helping you. And of course, the question arises whether then we should commit as much mistakes as possible. That's what people asked Paul back then. Of course, you don't want to make as many mistakes as possible when you understand this limitlessness of grace. But there is a great freedom to it. Like, I can even mess things up and it doesn't bother the presence of God in my life. It's crazy to realize that, oh, it's not about me guarding the presence. It's about this constant presence, and it is so constant that my stupid decisions and acts cannot interfere. And I don't want to be arrogant. It happened exclusively by grace, but God has taken me to the place where nothing can bother the presence of God in my life. Like, something terrible happens, or just a little inconvenient thing happens, and it all just forces me to rely more on him. And it all just helps me to realize that there are no conditions to his presence, not even my good choices. And that it is so abusable, if that's a word. Like, you cannot abuse the presence of God. Oh yes, you can. You can use it for the most ridiculous things and he won't withdraw himself. And yeah, there is a danger of abusing it when you realize that there are no conditions to it. Like, you can make mistakes and it won't be any less in your life. There is a joy to it. It's no longer your task. Like, I felt like I've done my best, trying to hear God, doing things the best possible, following his guidance. I tried to make things well. Like, I used to have this idea that I have to be the best at school, and then I left like my normal civil life. I just wanted to do the same in the kingdom of God. Then I'm gonna really hear God and really follow His guidance and really do things the best way. And I had to realize that my attempt don't really pay off. And it's not just that it doesn't pay off, it's more like it's the contrary. It actually makes things worse. Just ask my friends. If you don't believe it. And yeah, I had to understand that he was right when he tried to convince me that let my life live its life through you. Um, there is a new interpretation of control. Like, I no longer try to control you, God, but I want to see what you do. I want to follow what you want me to do. I want to have an insight into it. I want to help you make your will happen. I want to at least know what you are up to so that I can cooperate with it. We have those charismatic control mindsets. And hearing God and all these supernatural gifts doesn't help it. Now we have a new language for the same control issues we used to have. Now I'm just gonna hear God and follow His guidance. You just want to take up control again. He just wants to live His life through you. He doesn't want to tell you all the stuff He's doing. And He surely doesn't want you to understand it all the time. And I had this issue when I had to learn it the hard way. And even if like terrible feelings come to the surface because of in this process, even that is from the Lord. Everything is in Him and through Him. Even the stupid things, even our mistakes, are in Him. Wow. So, just to give you a bit of a backstory, the day before this amazing Valentine's Day with God, I was so overwhelmed by the mistake I've done. I was starting to have anxiety, like for like not just like being stressed out about something, but like having this like kind of like anxiety attack. Like my hands were shaking and I couldn't cook, and just like, oh my gosh, I haven't had that kind of anxiety for years. Like, what is this? Is it an attack from the enemy? Is it like, what is this thing? And I was scared, like, am I not free from those things? And then I had my little way out serious time with practice. I just had to like say no to it. Like, no, it seems quite reasonable for you to attack me when I'm confused and all that, and but you won't happen. You just don't. I don't allow you in. Like, it was a great idea for you to come in when I'm not doing great, but you just won't overwhelm me. I'm done with you. And God, I kept asking God, why is it happening to me? And He said, it was in you. It's not a great attack or something. That was something that has been under all the things in you. And I've allowed it to come to the surface so that you can realize that it is in you, and that you can say like, goodbye to it. You can have your last meeting with it, and just know it, that it is the last time you felt it. So it was, I didn't feel a great liberation, nothing. I was just like doing okay. And then next morning, I woke up to this, like, you know, extreme joy and wanting to be with God. So this was the backstory. So I wish you endless opportunities to make mistakes. I'm not kidding. It's not as bad as we think it is. We stress ourselves about, like, if I do this, like, I can't even be close to God, I can't this and that. These things are not true at all. God is forever close, and He can take you to the place where you know that you cannot do anything that makes you feel separated from Him. Well, we know that, oh, nothing can separate us. Yeah, we know it, but we feel like we can still do it, like, exponentially. And God wants to even break that. Like, no, your experience of me is also not dependent on how many mistakes you make. And yeah, this feels kind of like freedom. I love it. What I would really love to do is to make a video of how helpless and miserable I can be. Like, how people think that I share these things because that's what I am, and that's what I act like always, like cutting tomatoes, worshipping. And I cut the tomatoes while worshipping. But it's like I have a lot of times when I'm just a silly young girl. And what God is doing through me is contrary to my deeds and thinking and all that. And it is not the result of my VIP Christianity or something. When people listen to me a lot and they meet me, of course I share revelations and testimonies. I don't share about how stupid I can be, but it is going to change. And they have this amazing concept that I'm this super Christian or something. This high race of Christianity, and I'm like, oh, I'm quite helpless, and I can be quite miserable, and this is only a testimony of, like, yeah, God's grace shows up and it can take you anywhere. Most of my videos had been recorded when I was, like, depressed, and I had those amazing experiences, and I recorded them like 5 years ago, and in between two experiences I was miserable and I was depressed, and it has only been for a year that I feel great in between experiences. So yeah. So I can be a helpless, silly little girl most of the time. And when I switch on the camera, God just flows through me. And it's him. Like, and people think that I'm like, I'm on that level. I'm not on any level. I just, it just happens to contrary to my level. And I want you to know that God won't flow through you when you are a VIP Christian and when you are worshiping while you're cutting tomatoes. He just shows up by his grace, and you can't expect that. Yeah. So I'm gonna make a video about how silly I can be and how helpless I can be, so that you know that this is not happening because I do something well. It is happening contrary to how terrible I tend to act and think at times. Yeah, and that's what grace is about. Like, God just flows through you, and it's so believable that everyone thinks like, oh, that girl is really, you know, is really walking. She's really walking with God. And I'm like, yeah, kind of. But he happens to show up every time I switch on the camera, and yeah. Okay, I love you guys. Have a great time with the Lord. God bless you.